we've definitely been focusing on a couple of like the core partners, which are Revit. They're opening a new flagship store here in Denver very soon, so we're doing some collaborations with them there. We'll be at most of the Moskomoto, Dusty Lizard campouts. We did that last year too. They're super fun. Highly recommended if you're into camping and adventure riding.
Rene Steenvoorden. Steenvoorden.
Hey, this is where your editing comes in, right? If you say 10 times, you just pick the one and works well, and you're like, Steenvoorden it is.
Yeah, we'll start off talking about your life living under a bridge in Amsterdam.
Yeah, and then living under a bridge in a van.
Down by the river.
Down by the river.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
Yes. Rene Steenvoorden, Bivouac Coffee principal. That's what they say that in Europe, like F1 principle.
F1 principle, yeah.
Bivouac Coffee.
You've been watching the Drive to Survive
series.
series.
They make it sound like, entrepreneur, like business owner. That's whatever.
Business owner.
Principal.
Owner.
Like, oh, yeah. So how big is your organization? 3 people.
I'm the CEO, really.
Yeah. It cracks me up when it's like, I deleted my LinkedIn because I hated it. But it's like CEO. And it's like, how many people in your company? Me. It's like,
Me and my wife. I'm like, Happens all the time, though. I mean, a lot of people, they get the card and they're like, CEO of a 3-person company. And I never put it on my LinkedIn or anything because I feel like it's stupid. It's just, I don't even know what to put owner, I guess. I do like a million things, but I guess I'm responsible.
The way you said that in your face was hilarious. Like, I'm a CEO. Like, dude, if you're a CEO, you probably don't tell people you're a CEO.
I feel like we need the Drive to Survive starting things, whereas I'm like, I'm the CEO of Bivouac Coffee.
Yeah. And like there's, other angles.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Steenvoorden. Steenvoorden? What is my
you got it.
Steenvoorden.
We'll get into the groove.
Yeah, we're already getting there. We're already getting there. We're already getting there.
Okay, cool.
All right. Welcome to the show, by the way. I'm going to leave that intro in. Rene Steenvoorden, principal owner, CEO of Bivouac Coffee here in Evergreen, Colorado. Dude, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man. We are on location for those of you listening, not watching, at Bivouac Coffee in Evergreen. We got some cool swag. We got some machinery behind us. I've gotten educated a little bit on coffee hanging around you, and I think it's just a super cool thing that to have somebody that's well-versed in coffee and also an avid motorcycle enthusiast on the show.
Yeah. The 2 things I care about.
That's it. And we're going to get to it, but you collaborate, with a lot of major brands. A lot of people promote your brand. I've been in dealerships, they have your brand out there. And it was interesting how, I think we didn't even talk about starting with this, but Bivouac, the name. I think that was cool. It was wasn't it camping? I mean, I know like in the military, we're going to set up bivouac here, but I think this was from Dakar, right? Where you got this?
Not directly from Dakar, but we basically got it out of like mountaineering.
Okay.
I mean, most of our team lives up in the mountains. So when we were thinking about the name of the company at the time, and my business partner at the time founded the company and made the decision on the name. And it was really cool because it was inspired by an unplanned shelter, right? So to bivvy is an unplanned campsite for the night. And we thought it was really cool. Like you go climb a mountain or something, you're stuck somewhere, you're going to spend the night, you're roughing it. That's a cool outdoorsy thing that we like to do. And I think over time we've gone a little bit more broad in the outdoor space. And bivouacs are really common in rallies like the Dakar, which is another cool connection with moto. We didn't think about that at the time, but those 2 worlds kind of come together.
It's interesting because you don't. So I guess first of all, how did somebody not think to use that name already? It's a pretty cool name.
Yeah, I think there's like a cider company somewhere in California that is using bivouac, and it's a French word, right? So in France, there are some companies that have a similar name, but I don't think it's with coffee. So I guess we're a little unique.
Yeah, Bivouac Coffee, because I think, bivvy, right? So how did we use that in the military? Maybe like a bag, sleeping bag? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the military is the only place I heard bivouac, right?
Yeah, usually if we do events and people ask us about the name all the time, first, how do you pronounce it? Good job, by the way, because you nailed it.
What are some of the other alternate pronunciations?
We hear the weirdest things. It's just hard because it has a lot of letters that people have trouble combining, right? So we've heard all kinds of variations when people come into the shop, which is always kind of a good starting point for a conversation. But to bivvy is a very common thing in the military, and we do get a lot of people when we travel that say, I know this term because I was in the military, or they say, I used to be a climber, or I'm a climber, and I know it from that world. And then I think the ADV or rally side of things is a little bit smaller, a little bit more niche. But yeah, definitely people have picked up on it, which is just fun. It's just a unique name, easy to find.
Yeah.
We like it.
I would challenge anybody to, so we have somebody stopping by while we're going to record this, but I was texting Bivouac, and I was like, B-I-V. Everybody knows B-I-V. Then you're like, is it O-U? It's hard to spell initially, I think.
It is. Yeah, and we do run into that. It's like good to have a unique name, but at the same time, people spell it wrong. But the good news is Google's pretty good at figuring it out, and we only have one location and one website. So once people kind of know what it is, they'll find us.
Right, and that's good. And I think I got stuck because there was no like autocorrect. I don't know if there's autocorrect for Bivouac, but there should be. So you started in your garage, but we need to rewind the tape a little bit and talk about how you came to be here in the United States and also Evergreen, Colorado. You came from Amsterdam, right?
Yep, born and raised outside of Amsterdam. My family still lives there. My friends still live there. And ended up marrying an American. And she and I lived in London for 4 years, and we traveled a lot for work, and we were in we're kind of in the tech world. So flying everywhere, traveling a ton. And I think at some point we got kind of sick of that. The hustle and bustle of the city. It was a super cool experience to live in central London together for a couple of years, do these international jobs. But we figured we want to get out and we want to just be in nature more. And I was always really drawn to the outdoors and, into climbing and all kinds of adventuring. And I think when that came together, we said, where do we want to live? She had a house in Denver. So eventually we moved to the US and we took a year off to live on the road.
Amsterdam. Maybe talk a little bit about London too, but Amsterdam. I remember I've been to Amsterdam several times when I lived in Europe, and I remember thinking it was really cool because everybody spoke English. It was like you were back in the States. You could go to McDonald's and order like the regular menu, and it was just a really cool kind of atmosphere, very familiar atmosphere versus say being in, I don't know, Germany where I lived or going to France.
Yep.
So I always found Amsterdam very fascinating, very friendly, and just a nice place. I haven't been there in 25 years, but I think it'd be really cool to go back. Have you been back?
Oh, yeah. We try to go back about every year and visit friends and family and stuff like that. Yeah. A bit weird with COVID recently, but yeah.
Yeah. What's the best part of Amsterdam?
I mean,
if I'm going to go visit, what's the best part of it?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's so much history throughout the whole city. So I feel like, and I live just outside of it, but you know how small the Netherlands is, right? You take a train, you're in 2 hours, you're at the other side of the country.
Right.
So I moved around a lot in the country itself, but I mean, there's a lot of history, and I think you just have to find that history. And as long as you do that and you kind of do a little bit of research and don't stick to just a typical, guidebook stuff or Google stuff, you'll find a lot of cool stuff.
Do you own a pair of wooden shoes?
I do.
Really?
Yeah. They are very old, though.
That was a joke. I mean, so what's the there's no like insoles in those things, right?
Nope. They're actually very uncomfortable. It's a bit of a joke. I found a pair actually in the U.S., so I'm going to give you the transparent story, not the cool story.
Right.
Yeah, that's people definitely use them on farms.
Oh,
but,
really?
Yeah, not if you live in the city or anything like that.
What's the practical application? I feel like if you can make wooden shoes, you can make like regular shoes.
Well, you've seen Crocs, right? It's the original Croc.
It is the original Croc. Yes.
It's just not as comfortable.
So you come from Amsterdam, you live a bit in London, and you're like, I want a better life. I want a more relaxed life. I want to, I want to come to the States. And you do that by living in a van, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Well, so when we were talking, I was like, yeah, And you're like, yeah, I lived in a van. I was like, down by the river. Cool. So, but, I think van life, especially after COVID or during COVID, became super intriguing to everybody. And you saw, especially around here, Winnebagos and all the things, right? Mercedes Sprinter vans and like van life is everything.
Yep.
So for all of us that think we want to live van life, what's it like?
It's pretty awesome. The funny thing is a lot of people ask us about that period of our lives because it was a year long. We didn't work. We saved up for the trip. We bought a van after moving here. And they ask you, what's the best place to go? Because that's what it's all about, right? And I don't think it is about the places you visit. I think it's about the people you meet, and it's about the lifestyle of living simply in a van. Because you are forced. We literally moved to the U.S. with our carry-on luggage and then just moved that right into a van. And we're like, this is my favorite gear. It's all I'm bringing. And I feel like that's a really cool thing to experience because we all have so much stuff, right? And there's always, ads targeting you to buy more stuff and more gear. And we really had to go down and look into our favorite gear and put it in that little van and just start using it. And I feel like the simplicity of like waking up, driving somewhere, visiting places, being active outside, find a campsite, set up camp, make dinner, go to bed. It's the simplicity of the gear side and the not owning much, and the simplicity of the day schedule. Like that's all you have to care about. There's nothing else. And of course, that sounds ideal because we all have to work. I think that makes it a little harder if you try to combine the two. But I definitely think there's an option to do that, and I think we still try to live kind of simply, I guess, even though we own a normal house.
So a couple years ago, we got a travel trailer, not quite van life, but there was a bunch of, it took about 3 or 4 times to get it right. You're living in a van, so it took you maybe a month. I don't know. But just the things you don't think about when you have a house, like, guess what? I've only got so much water on board.
Yep.
I got to dump, my gray or black water, or I got to plug in, or, all those things associated with having sort of a mobile unit that doesn't have an infinite supply, like a well and all that stuff. I mean, I guess you got used to it, like being sort of convenient, being inconvenient. Like you have to plan those things in advance.
I think that's the interesting part about it. I think a lot of times in today's world, we kind of forget, about all the challenges you might have with these simple things in life, right? Where like if you're cold, you just turn up the thermostat, or turn on the air conditioning if you're warm. Like that stuff is just automatic these days, right? You can do it with your phone if you want to. And I feel like if you live in a van, that's all you care about. It's like, oh, what's the weather outside? Oh, it's cold. Oh, it's warm. Like you have to just deal with all these basic things, and because you don't have the comfort. And I think once you figured it out, it's actually pretty awesome because it's very rewarding if you do it.
Yeah, you feel like you've done something. I remember our first trip in that travel trailer. I think it has like 30 gallons of water, but we did like 5 days up northern Colorado by Walden, and we're trying to be very stingy with the water and still ran out of water. And it's like 45 minutes to an hour to the next place with water. And you're like, now what? Luckily I had a 5-gallon thing in the truck, but you don't realize, like you said, when it's readily available in your home, you don't think about it. Or that's a couple years ago, the well pump actually went out at the house. And we're kind of getting a little off topic, but I find it interesting because we're talking about living simply. And you don't realize how many times you go to that tap and just hit it and expect water to come out until there's no water. And
That's
you're
right.
like, dude, like, how do I flush the toilet? How do I get something to drink? How do I whatever?
Yeah.
And I think that van forces you, I believe, because I only dabbled in camping, but forces you to be very aware of your resources.
That's right. Yeah, and I think even this example, right, because after we lived on the road for a year, we bought some property up here, and a fairly remote place. We don't have any services really up there, and we've had all kinds of issues related to the same concept, right? We had our well line freeze multiple times under the ground. So same thing, you don't have water anymore. The thing's completely frozen. And it's the same thing in a van, just on a smaller scale. Your water lines could freeze, you could run out of water, the same thing. It's very basic, and I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I worry that people just kind of forget about these things, right? They just assume everything works. And if it doesn't, you just fix it or call somebody. And a lot of times I think that doesn't always work out that great.
I actually had a conversation with Colonel Tackett 2 guests ago, or maybe a guest ago. Anyways, the point was, and I think it ties in perfectly, is how simple life is or how easy life is now. You talked about it. You push a button on your phone, food arrives. A button on your phone, a car arrives. Button on your phone, the temperature goes up and down in your house. And there's really no adversity there. There's no, kill what you eat. Did I say that right? And it's like, and I keep going back to van life or anything really, like with adversity, living in the mountains, it's hard, right? Yeah. Things break and you're out there and, the plumber doesn't want to come out. Or I remember when the well pump went out, they're like, well, we can get out there in like a week. I'm like, dude, I don't have any water. So I think the adversity is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Whether you're on a motorcycle or you're owning a business or you're doing what we're talking about, you got to have adversity to appreciate the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's just so many complexities in life. I think specifically these days that I think it's hard for people to go back to basics. And I think we all long for that. A lot of people like to camp. And even if that's not hardcore sleeping on the ground and going all in, whether that's car camping or renting a cabin. I think a lot of people do that because they want to experience the simplicity of it. They're like, oh, I slept in a cold room, or I didn't have the facilities to cook a nice breakfast or whatever. And I feel like it's really good. I feel like that shows that we all have this longing, I think, to do that. I think it's just hard to implement it in your daily life. And that's why I think a lot of people like you and I like to travel and camp and do things like that, whether that's on a bike or out of a car or whatever it is. I feel like at least it gets you a little bit closer. My personal challenge was a lot more, I want to incorporate this in my daily life. I want to just be aware of this as much as I can and relate back to this time in the van as inspiration, and not just go with it and just do what most people, I guess, seem to do, which just sounds weird to say that, but I do think you kind of get sucked in, especially living in the city.
Absolutely. And you said it perfectly, back to basics. And I want to talk about how you took that and translated it into where we're sitting now. An amazing, but sort of back to basics coffee shop. But there's one thing you said that key to a memory, and you're like, sleeping on the ground. You should put a little asterisk by that. So no strangers sleeping on the ground. But I was like 3 years ago, and my girlfriend and I went camping for the first time 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And I was like, I got all the gear. Tent, slept on the ground. One night, she was like, I'm never doing this again. And she was like, check this out. So we went out and we bought for a 4-person tent, an inflatable queen-size mattress. I was like, why have I been sleeping on the ground? Like, because when you got 10 inches of air under you, you're like, I don't need to rough it that bad.
Right.
Like, it's actually pretty nice. It's okay to have some things that, you don't have to rough it all the way.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because even if you do that, you do so much more than most people would do, right?
Yeah.
Because you're still out there camping, figuring out your mattress. Yes, you might be slightly more comfortable than some other people that are really roughing it, but that's a very small percentage of people. So I feel like it's just a good experience. I feel like that's just, for me personally, I'm not telling other people what they do, what they should be doing, or how to change their life, but I feel like I see an uptick in people interested in the topic. Minimalism, preparedness, simplicity, it's all connected. And I think it's hard these days because there's so much noise that I think it's hard to just go back and say, oh, I'm just going to go, I don't know, live off my motorcycle for 2 weeks. And it's hard to actually go do that.
You can always one up anybody, right? And if you can talk about minimalistic hiking or camping, and it's like, well, I took 20 pounds of gear, and then so I took 10, and I took 5. And it's like, well, I went out naked, and I lived for a week with nothing, and I ate berries and grass. It's like, well, where do we end with this? Like, so I think to your point, you're not going to tell anybody what to do, but man, just do what you want to do, and as long as it satisfies you, and man, if you want to have a 100-pound bag with cans of beefy noodles in there, then hey, at least you're doing something.
Yep.
So
you're still out there doing it, and most people won't. That's
exactly
the big difference. Even if you're not perfect in your lightweight camping setup, or your, the way you get your bike set up, or your backpack, you're still really trying, and I think that's awesome.
And the more you do it, the more you refine and get better at it. So I remember my first long distance motorcycle trip. I mean, from where I am now, it's night and day. You refine the packing list, you refine the actual stuff you take. I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, So I think there is value to get out and do it, even if you do start with cans of Beanie Weenies and whatever, because you're going to find out real quick, like, I don't need this, I need that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love the minimalism, all the M words, but we're sitting here in the coffee shop, and you wanted to take your minimalistic lifestyle, your basic lifestyle, and was the idea, I want to do coffee and then become minimalistic, or I want to own a business that's very simple and minimalistic, and then I introduce coffee? What came first?
I think coffee came first, but I think the simplicity element is just baked into the strategy of the company a little more. Because the company was founded in 2017 by my business partner at the time, and I was kind of involved in the sidelines, and we were extremely small, just roasting out of the back of our garage, very simple, and basically selling coffee to friends and family. And I kind of came on board and invested a little bit and helped with wholesale accounts and like the accounting side of things, and just running it as a real business. And then we built out this facility where we are now, and then later on this cafe as well. And I think it was always in the back of our minds to do something where we just do one thing really good. Because I think there's a lot of companies out there that want to do everything, and they don't get really good at anything, right? It's kind of like, oh, I want to try this, and they keep on moving around. And I get that, because I think you have this ambition as an entrepreneur to build a business and make more money and get more customers. So you kind of try everything. And I think it's really hard to just have a sustainable business model and say, we're just growing this thing, maybe a little bit slower than others, but what we do, at least we do really well. And that's, I think, the simplicity in it.
You know, what comes to mind immediately, and I'm not going to hate too hard on them because I've eaten there quite a bit, but I don't know the last time you've been to a Cheesecake Factory and looked at their 75-page menu. And then you go to another restaurant that has like 10 things. And it's like, but we do these 10 things really well. And I think there's value in that. So when you think about a coffee shop, you're like, we sell coffee. We don't have like, I don't know, pastries. Think of all the other places, right? That was at the focus. Like, I just want to sell you really good coffee, and that's it.
Yep.
That's
100%. Yeah, and it is still tricky up till today. You know, I think we definitely struggle with that too, because it's always like, well, we want to offer more things because it'll bring people in. There's also non-coffee drinkers that visit, of course, so that we have some alternatives there. But I think there's a fear of the impact on quality, basically, of the thing that we do really well, the essentials, and that is coffee, and that is first roasting, and then secondly, it's our cafe here, our tasting room. And the more you add, the more it's a distraction. Again, the same word, right, for the team, because they need to take care of other things that also need to be stocked, prepared, things like that. And I think you see a lot of places kind of struggle because then the overall service and experience goes down. But I get it from a business perspective, right, because you want to please everybody. And we keep our options very limited. All our drinks on the menu are the traditional recipes, one size only. We keep it simple. That might sometimes disappoint somebody, but most people actually are just totally fine with that. Once you say, well, we just do the traditional cappuccino here, so it's one size, and they say, oh, that's great. I want to try your cappuccino and not build my own version of it.
How much pushback did you get? So we have sort of parallels here in our own sort of entrepreneurial journey, and you're a little further down the road than I am, but you'll know where I'm going with this when I say, if I told somebody I want to do YouTube and I want to make videos and I want to start a podcast, they'd be like, dude, you and everybody else. Even more so if you're like, I think I'd like to open a coffee shop or do coffee. They're like, dude, there's like probably 100 of them within 5 square miles of here. Was that what's the word I'm looking for? Was that something, a deterrent? Or you just knew like, this is what I wanted to do no matter what?
Well, I think our story is a little bit different because the business partner at the time who founded the company was, I think, just really excited by the idea of opening a coffee company and just doing it. Not even thinking about competition or long-term strategy so much. When I joined very recently after we started, very shortly after we started, I think that changed a little bit because we're like, well, if we're going to rent a building, that's kind of a commitment. If we're going to buy a roaster that's really high quality, that's expensive, right? So you're in it for the long run. Then those questions really come up. I think starting a company is easy, but getting it off the ground and having a strategy behind it is way harder. And then obviously maintaining that strategy. So I think it was, we were off with the excitement of 2 guys saying, yeah, let's give it a try. I don't know, like we'll figure it out.
Right.
But I think after a few months, you're like, this is serious. And that's where a lot of doubt kind of creeps in. I don't think it was a deterrent. It was more, we definitely had some rough moments. Like, well, where's it going to go? We don't have enough traction. We want to build this. There's so much competition. And I think the competition piece is really interesting, actually, because there is a lot of competition in this industry, and for good reason. There's also a lot of very mediocre coffee in general. So I think we try to not look at competition too much. I think we do our own thing. We talk to our customers directly, both like wholesale customers, business to business customers, and just, more consumers. And if they like what we do and they buy their product, I think that's a really good sign. And if we get really good reviews and feedback, that's amazing. I think it's really easy to look at, other competitors these days using social media and other channels and just thinking that they must be doing really well until you hear they're not, in business anymore.
This is what I love about doing this show, because we have a general outline and it's like, well, we're going to kind of weave our way through. And, you and I had talked about doing a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff and I think this is the perfect time to kind of dive in it. We can dig back into coffee because, you talked about, your journey, like, hey, it's very easy to start a business. It's very easy to go online and you just pay $50. Now I have an LLC, I have a business card, CEO, like what we started with, right? But turning that idea into something that generates revenue and that people want a service or a product, and finding out that man, it's not that easy. And doing that market analysis and realizing your margins and all the things, like that's the hard part, sticking it out. I don't know what the statistics are, how many businesses fail or within 6 months or a year, but a testament to that is that you're still here.
Yeah.
And you're still doing it, and you have an amazing shop, and it's hard to take that idea and turn it into something.
It definitely is. And I think you mentioned a really important thing. You have to stick to it. And I think that is very challenging because if you're an ambitious person, right, you want to see the growth. Every day I'm trying to work towards getting new customers, getting that direct hit almost of like, oh, we're doing good. And then if there's a day that things are just fine, it's easy to get kind of disappointed and think like, oh, we're going in the wrong direction, or we're doing something wrong, or we're missing. There's no magic formula to get this thing off the ground. I think it just takes a lot of work and sticking to your strategy and always evaluating and improving the strategy. And I think that's a big one. But at the same time, not getting sucked into the negativity or we could do better. And I definitely suffer from that a little bit because I'm ambitious and I want things to be absolutely perfect all the time. And it's not going to happen all the time. So I accept it. But yeah, I know where people are coming from. But I think it's really risky to try too many different things because people, as in customers, do notice that. And they see you searching, right? Searching for new products or new branding. And they, people notice those changes. And I don't always think it's a positive thing. I think people are going to be like, you're clearly... like, are you standing behind a product or are you just trying to like build a brand and try whatever you can to just get something off the ground, whatever that may be? Because
if you introduce something and it flops, if Coke does that and they introduce whatever cola and it doesn't do well, whatever, we got this whole line of, but if you do it, you're one guy or one business with only a few products, there's a lot more risk there. Yeah, there was a customer recently who came in, and long-term customer, and shared some really interesting feedback. And as a business owner, I was listening to those things, obviously. And he said, it's just always consistently good. And it's like, it's a really solid business. And I was like, cool. And it doesn't sound sexy, right? Because if you're like, oh, it's a solid experience, you're like, okay, I'm like, great. But I do feel like that's missing in a lot of industries, especially in the service industry, where you just see, and you see this in the motorcycle world too, where people are like excited, but then they get disappointed because one time they had a really good experience, maybe at a dealership or somewhere else, and then the next time they had a kind of crappy experience. And you might not go back because you don't know if you can rely on it. And I think people just come here day in, day out because they're like, it's always good. It's always good. They always do a good job. And if something does go wrong, we'll correct that immediately. It's not even a thing. And we do the same with online shipping. We ship all across the country. But if there's ever a package that gets lost, we just ship it right out the next day, and we'll just make it right. People shouldn't be needing to go call 3 times, send 7 emails, fill out a form. We just do it right. And I feel like people appreciate that. There's another aspect of this that I won't say you failed to mention, but you haven't mentioned. So when you talk about, let's say me again, I am my brand, I am my business, and I 100% can shape people's perception of what I produce. You no doubt can do the same thing, but you have another element, and that is you have employees. And I've had nothing but good experiences when I come here, but that is a struggle, I think, with a lot of businesses, especially even larger ones, where you have the vision, you have the goal, you will bend over backwards, customer service, all the things, but you can't be here 24/7. You got to sleep. And so you have to depend on your employees to carry on the mission, to carry on your purpose and your vision and all that. And I think that is an incredibly tough thing to do, to find folks to do that. 100%. It is. It's definitely very difficult. We're also based in a small mountain town, so we're not in a big city. Harder to find people. We definitely have seen our fair share of challenges just in general with like staffing. I think that's just a sign of the times. But we do treat our people really well, I think, and people are excited to be here, and they do believe in what we're trying to do and the mission of the company. And I think it makes a big difference. And we also invest a lot in training. We make sure they're comfortable, they're perfect. We empower the team with a lot of the daily tasks, kind of running the shop on their own. And I think a lot of people just appreciate that as an individual because you're not just a barista where somebody's looking over you and giving you a task every 10 seconds and what to do. We kind of say, run with it. But we make sure they do a good job. And I think people see that. as we get into sort of wrapping up the entrepreneur aspect, because I want to ask you for your advice for folks, but I'll tell you something very critical, and you nailed it as far as don't quit. But I was talking to a gentleman, and when I sort of started this journey, and he was like, "Phil, man, dude, you're gonna lay awake at night." That's what editing's for, by the way. You're gonna lay awake at night, and you're gonna be like, "Am I doing the right thing?" It's gonna be the early hours of the morning, and you're gonna doubt yourself, and you're gonna be like, "Should I get a job? Should I get a job?" And you're gonna be your biggest critic, and you're gonna be like, "Is this gonna work? Is this gonna work?" And I think that self-doubt and that drive, that's why you're probably here at 3, 4 in the morning sometimes, or you're out late till midnight, you're doing your thing. That is a very hard thing to overcome in the initial stages, because there are so many roadblocks, so much doubt. Am I doing the right thing? You see your, whatever it is, your bank account going down because you're trying to do things, and it's like, oh my God, am I going to make it? And I think, to me, to your point, sticking to it in the midst of all that is probably one of the hardest things to do when you venture out on your own.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I definitely struggle with that because I'm a perfectionist, and I like to make sure everything's perfect all the time. But you can't, right? There's things just out of our control. If we ship packages out and not here, there's nobody to check them, right?
Yeah.
We have to trust our team that they do a good job. And they will, because we make sure that we train them appropriately. But there's always that risk of failure, and they think outside of like the inside of the company, there's the outside, the competitors. A lot of times up here, the weather, if you look at the physical location, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like people might not be able to get in here. The roads are bad. It's all impacting business, and it's all stuff you have to worry about all the time. And that is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for any business owner who really cares, is like, how do I mitigate all that and process it, and then say at the end of the day, oh, we did pretty good. That isn't just driven by numbers.
Yeah. And final thing I'll add is, when you do have weather, so excuse me, we've all had that corporate sort of job, and let's say you're in the service industry and 2 days of snow and you don't get out and service those customers and capture that revenue. Well, when you work for XYZ company, you're like, I might miss monthly target, but guess what happens every 2 weeks? That paycheck is still hitting your account every 2 weeks. You're up here and you get 3 days of weather. You're like, uh-oh.
Yep.
I mean, it's a real thing versus working for, a large corporation. I think that people that haven't experienced that don't quite understand how sometimes that can really, keep you awake at night.
Yeah, absolutely. And luckily we have our online business, so we can shift a little bit. People can order a coffee from anywhere in the country here in the U.S., so it makes it easier to keep some things going. And we have our business-to-business partners as well, so that makes it a little bit better. But absolutely, I mean, the worst is when you have a staffing emergency and you have to close the door, which luckily almost never happens. But if it does happen, there's going to be a disappointed customer at the doors. They're closed, and those things they happen everywhere. You've seen this everywhere you go. But we try to do, a lot of things to avoid any of that. But yes, it definitely impacts you, and it impacts the bottom line too.
So that was really heavy.
Yeah, that was a little heavy, wasn't it?
Shake that off. We need to pivot back to coffee. No, I think that's good, man. I think that's, there's a phrase that everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster stuff or whatever. So you kind of laying out, your business and your model and like the struggles you face, like it's for real. It's easy to set up an LLC and get a title and do all the things, but is it really easy to do the thing? So I want to kind of get back to coffee because I have a super exciting, but this is like real material, REEL. This is like stuff I'm gonna put on Instagram, but coffee myths. So I'm a consumer. I like coffee, but I don't know the industry like you do. And I'll start you off with one that I have heard over the years, especially in the military: light dark roast. And everybody that I've ever known assumes dark roast means it's stronger. Like, I need that. They'll say jet fuel. I want that dark roast. Myth?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. There's this whole thing about dark roast that I don't know all the history, especially in the U.S. But yeah, there's definitely, especially older generation. First of all, a lot of times ask for dark roast. We do have a dark roast, but a lot of our coffees are a little lighter or medium roast to retain that flavor. But if you roast coffee longer, which is basically what you do if you create a dark roast, it will lose caffeine in the process. Is it a huge difference? No, it's not that big of a deal, but there is this association that dark coffee is somehow strong. I don't know where that's coming from. Light roast coffees have more caffeine. So yeah, it is a myth. My answer is though, don't overthink it too much. You can always just add a scoop of coffee to it if you want a little bit stronger. That's totally fine too. You get the same effect. So the whole light roast, and we get customers that I was like, oh, I only drink light roast because it's higher caffeine. Sure. I mean, that is a reason. To me, it's not that important. You could just drink a little bit more coffee if you want that boost.
Yeah. What are some other myths that you've heard or prevalent in the industry that maybe you can debunk or at least tune us into?
I mean, I think there's a lot of misinformation, but I think, again, going back to simplicity, we try to keep things pretty simple. I think there is this fear of not knowing enough about coffee. So if you go to a nice place and it says, is this a craft coffee roaster? This is a specialty coffee shop. People are kind of intimidated. I don't think anybody should be. My experience is if you source good beans that are high quality, it doesn't really matter if you put them in a really nice drip machine or have an espresso machine or do something, have a cheap coffee maker. It doesn't really matter that much. If you're really into it, of course it does. It's really fun to play around with, just like wine and whiskey is and other things. But to be honest, if you source the right coffee and you like the recipe that you use to create your cup of coffee, you're good. So a lot of these myths, they're out there. I think there's a lot of terminology that's confusing. A lot of times people say, I like bold coffee. What does that mean?
Bold.
Is that strong, as in caffeine? Or they say I like strong coffee. Like I think a lot of people say I don't like gas station coffee. That's like very watery. It tastes like coffee, but it's like going to McDonald's. You're like you can drink the whole thing, and then 2 hours later, you're like I still don't feel awake. So there's not a lot of coffee in that coffee, right?
Right.
It's mainly water. So I think that is something we talk about with customers a lot, even if we do events or sampling. They're like, I like bold coffee, a strong coffee, or light coffee. It's like, all right, what does that mean for you? So I think outside of myths, I think that's a big one that we see, and I think that's the fun part for us. We just say, give it a try, see if you like this, and if they say I like this one, you're like, all right, here's a darker version of that type of coffee or a little lighter, and just have to experience it.
Bold. Do you ski? I think you ski.
Not a lot anymore now.
Well, when you said bold and light, it reminded me of when they say conditions are packed powder. I'm like, what is packed powder? If it's packed, it's not powder.
Yeah.
It's just it's like words, wordplay. But you did talk about sourcing beans as being super important. And I actually have, this is not a commercial for Bivouac, but this is my favorite brand. It's called Wild Thing. I'll hold it up. How do you find the beans that you want? And of course, this is just the generic high level stuff, just for all of us that don't know how this happens. You find the beans you want, and then they end up in here, which, I make in the morning. What's sort of the process for that?
Yeah, so there's some roasters that have the direct relationships, especially if you are at a certain size, with farmers in the different countries, right, where coffee grows. We use importers for most of what we do. Some are smaller and more niche, and some are a little bit bigger. But basically, the importers have the relationships with the farms and do all the quality control, and cupping and scoring or grading of all the different coffees that might come into the U.S. We get all that information, and based on that, we can get samples. We can try different coffees, and there's basically somebody on the team that constantly kind of monitors what's out there. And then one thing is we only do naturals, or what they call sun-dried coffees. So they're dried in the sun, not to get into too much detail, but most of the coffee in the U.S. is washed, uses a ton of water, has a bigger impact on the environment because of that. The processing is also pretty toxic using the water, so there's an infrastructure issue there. And these sun-dried coffees or naturals are very smooth, like kind of low acidity coffees usually. So for those two reasons, we said we're just only going to do naturals. That's our thing. So when we talk to importers, that's the first thing we do. We look at their selection of naturals, and then the grading on those and the tasting notes that they've defined. And if those are interesting and we decide to purchase some of that coffee, then it gets shipped to our facility here, and the roasting process starts, which we do, a couple times a week.
So you roast them here?
We roast them right here behind me. Yep.
Oh, nice. And then, of course, you got, I don't know if this is just, so for everybody that can't see this, we got bags back here. Is this live stuff or is this display stuff?
Nope, this is what we're roasting. Yeah, this is what they call green coffee, so before it's roasted.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that. I think I told you a story of my buddy who tried to roast coffee in a popcorn machine, and then the popcorn machine caught on fire. And, you know, this whole thing, I think it's almost like people that try to brew their own beer in their basement or whatever. But it's definitely pretty neat. And you mentioned environmentally friendly. So where I want to go with that is this word, I'm throwing in quotations, sustainable, right? Because you see stuff with organic on it, or you see sustainable, or you see like, I don't know, what is it? Cage-free chicken. Well, what does that mean? Not chicken, eggs, right? And it's like, it doesn't really mean what you think it means.
Yeah.
Sustainable in the coffee world. What is it? I mean, is it something that you have to get a certification on, or why is that important to Bivouac?
So that's a very tricky question, because I think there's a lot of discussion about this, the trademarks everywhere, right? Whether you buy eggs or coffee or whatever it is. Right. There are, most of our coffees have the organic certification. Some don't, because they come from smaller farmers. A lot of these naturals come from smaller farms. And that makes a difference. So even though the process is very organic and traditional and, you know, positive for the local environment and you know, less impact on climate change and things like that, it's a tough one, because there isn't like a gold standard of some sort where you're like, if you do this, then you're doing it right. I think we just have our niche. We see that there's environmental benefits to these types of coffees. That doesn't mean that everything else is bad, but it doesn't stop there, right? Because there's like the impact of like running the business. So like, you know, we buy green energy for our roaster. All our bags are compostable. All our cups are compostable. We compost all our coffee grounds that we use here at the shop. So we try to do whatever we can. And because of that, we are certified in Colorado in the Green Business Network as a gold member, which is the highest level you can get. And that's kind of cool to see, because even when we were in the process of getting that certification, or at least applying for it, they asked us a lot of questions that you need to provide all the data on so many elements of the business. And there's a lot of things in there you don't even think about as a business owner. Like, we think about the basics, like the beans we source and the bags and things like that. But there were so many things they were asking data for that was actually kind of cool. Like, how far away do your employees live? Do they drive electric cars? Things that you're like, oh, I didn't really account for that, right? Because if somebody drives here from Boulder, it's a different story than somebody lives down the road. And again, that is all part of the big picture. But it was really interesting. And I feel like you need to look at the total picture if you talk about sustainability. And I do think there's definitely a bit of a risk that people just look at a certification and say, oh, I went to the grocery store and it says organic, so it must be good. That's a very debatable thing.
You know, it's interesting. I love how you navigated that question, because what it really tells me is like, okay, there's this big complex world out there, and there's all these certifications and all these things, but I am controlling what I can control. Like, we're doing the best that we can in this space, whatever it is, 5,000, 10,000 square feet, and we're making sure that we make, I would assume, the least amount of impact that we can on the environment, just in the process in general, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not perfect, right? We're still running a business, and I think we just need to be aware of it, and I think set processes in place and think about it strategically, how we can improve things. But the difference is it's kind of baked into our product, right? Because the core element of what we're trying to do is the beans we source. And by only doing naturals, we're kind of a step ahead in the sustainability space. And then if we add on other things, like I said, compostable bags and things like that, that makes a difference. And I think that's from the start, we always said, let's do it right. So yeah, it does make the product a little bit more expensive, because those elements of, you know, packaging, things like that, they are just a little bit more expensive. It's the same as a good staff, right? If you pay people well, you get better people usually. And I feel like it's hard as a business owner, right? Because the cost is everything, but at the same time, in the long run, that's, I think, how we grow the business, and people do appreciate it and they understand it most of the time.
You said something that I think a lot of larger companies either know and refuse to acknowledge, or should take note of. And that's like, if you pay people better, you usually get a higher quality person. And that's super important. I think, you know, because the caliber by which, you know, you judge or whatever that the wage they demand is based on should be the caliber of the worker. Like, if I want somebody just to come in here and, I don't know, cut boxes apart and stack them, that's a little different than somebody that's interacting, representing my brand with customers, and the quality and experience and all that of the employee. So I think that's good that you recognize there's value there, and not just like, I don't care what everybody, I don't know what the going rate is, but everybody gets $13 an hour. I don't care what you do. Well, that doesn't incentivize anybody. I don't
Yeah.
think. And that goes through, and I don't know if you saw that even through the corporate experience. Everybody's not the same. Everybody's experience is the same, and everybody is not worth the same. I would assume every bag of your coffee is not the same price.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, it's all based on different things. And
Yep.
I kind of going back to myths, because I want to kind of get into moto. So
Our
when we
favorite thing in the world. So we have to do it.
Yes, our favorite thing in the world. Interestingly enough, we should interject. You and I met for the first time in Jefferson, Colorado. This was probably, 4 years ago, more than that, maybe 5. I don't know. We were in Jefferson, Colorado, and pulled up. You had your GS out there, and I was like, "Oh, hey, man," and interested. It was just an interaction. We kind of like, "Oh, cool." And I don't know if we exchanged Instagram handles or whatever, but then here we are, and it's like we're doing the podcast. That's crazy how it works. The other thing that we talk about is how small, and that's a good example, the motorcycle community is, whether it's people or businesses. As I have gotten introduced to folks that here in Colorado or outside of Colorado, companies that are larger companies, and it's like, oh yeah, that guy knows that guy, that knows that guy, and I also know that guy. It's like it's smaller than people think.
Yeah. And I think that's what I like about it. I think there's a lot of really good people in this industry, that, like interesting characters, people that are into traveling, especially the adventure motorcycle community specifically. And they have the right attitude to, I think, quality, the way to use their time, the gear they buy. And I think coffee is a part of that. And that's my little share in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So myths, last myth on coffee as we transition to moto, instant coffee. So we were talking a little bit about this before the show, and my dad, I remember growing up, he was huge. He hated instant mashed potatoes, and he hated instant coffee. And of course, when I was growing up, instant coffee, like I said, was like the little tin can of like Sanka, whatever, Folgers. And you produce instant coffee. I think I know you get the transportability, you get the ease of use. Like you're not bringing your coffee, your Black & Decker out camping. But is there that much of a quality difference between the little instant packet and what you sell here?
Well, it is different. I mean, that's what I usually tell everybody. When we started for many, many years, we said we will never do instant. And the reason is exactly what you said. It's usually not very good, traditionally. But I think it's come a long way, and I think it's a solution for a lot of situations where it's totally worth it. And I think we need to get away from the, instant is bad, so I will never buy it. I mean, there's a lot of alternative brewing solutions these days that it's come a long way. And I think we get so many questions from people that said, we love your coffee. We'll buy it. We'll take it with us on most trips. But if I'm on the motorcycle and I'm camping and I had a bad night and I'm bivvying, somewhere in a remote place.
Nice tie-in, by the way.
I know. It's too much. I'm not bringing the AeroPress and the collapsible filter and all that stuff, which, is really fun to do. So like, I love doing that kind of stuff, but I get it. And we said, maybe we should look into it. And the way it works is the way we do it is we still roast the coffee, right? It's exactly the same coffee you get in a bag, but we work with a partner company that basically processes that into instant. So you just add water, just kind of a powder, right? You add water, you stir it, and you're done. And it tastes really good, but it's not the same, right? So I think there's something pretty magical about making fresh coffee and bringing some beans with you, maybe grind them, before your trip, or maybe you do it while you're camping. But there's a time and place for everything. And I'm also traveling with instant coffee all the time because it's just convenient to have it with me. Even in hotels, sometimes you just ask for a kettle and you can just make it. Sometimes it's just not worth the hassle. So I get it. I think it's just a really good alternative, and that's what most of our customers do. They buy the coffee for at home, just the bags of beans, and then they buy some instant, and they keep that in the bag for travels.
So it is a process then, because in my mind, I'm like, well, if I grind these beans up small enough, they'll dissolve, but it's not the same.
No, that wouldn't really work.
It wouldn't really.
I wouldn't recommend trying that.
No. Okay.
You might be very unhappy.
Okay. And it's the thing, though, like if you're out camping, which I do a lot of camping, and not with the actual camper, but like you're out in a tent. It's like, well, when I wake up in the morning, I'll put some water in the canteen, I'll turn on a little propane and heat up water, and now I have coffee. I don't have to do anything else while I'm, whatever it is, picking up camp or whatever.
Yeah.
Super convenient and willing to take, especially if you're on the bike, you have less gear, willing to take a little drop in quality, and it's not even noticeable, I don't think, to have that convenience. Portability, I have coffee right now.
100%. But then the other part of this is there's something really fun just about putting a little bit of effort into making your coffee, because that's the same goes, at home. I think a lot of people they want the automatic machine and just hit a button. You don't even think about it, which is fine. But I feel like there's something fun in bringing it back to simplicity. Just like take a minute and say, I'm just going to make a nice coffee. Maybe you make a pour over. You put some effort into it. And I feel like that's a good way to start your day. It's why people like meditate in the morning, right? It's good practice to do that because it kind of keeps you grounded. And if you can use this moment to just relax for a minute, not look at your work email, drink your coffee, just enjoy it. That's kind of cool. And I like to do that when we're camping too. It's like when you're out, just, we sell these kind of foldable kind of pour overs, and whatever solution you carry. I think our friends at Moto Camp Nerd just did a video on like 10 ways to brew coffee when you're moto camping, which is worth watching. And it starts with instant on one side, and then like some fancy devices that are pretty big that you can take with you if you want to, all the way up to like espresso, solutions. And it's cool. Like, I think you need to find whatever fits in your bag and what you like to do in terms of effort. But I think it should be, or it's fun to consider it as something kind of exciting, because we all like that moment in the morning. You're kind of gearing up, you're getting ready to hit the road. You kind of get, that excitement builds, and you want to have that moment of maybe breakfast, coffee, getting ready. And I think it's fun to make that a little bit special and not just say, I bought the cheapest instant coffee out there and, it gets me going. And we hear that a lot from people that are like, I just need it to survive. And it's like, well, maybe not the most fun approach to your day.
Right. Have you ever smoked a pipe? And I'm talking about like tobacco pipe.
I have not.
Okay. So what you said, about the process. So I have a buddy, Adele, who he kind of got me dabbling in pipe smoking, but he was like, Phil, it's not just, anybody can buy a cigar, smoke a cigar. He's like, the pipe is about the process. Like cleaning it out. And then when you light it, you got to tamp it down and do all this other stuff. And you have tools, and the process is the interesting piece. And then of course, smoke it and learning how to smoke it. And I think that's similar with what you're talking about, the coffee. Yeah, I can just heat up water and pour some instant coffee. And there's a time and a place. But I also had another friend, Eric with a K, and he carried this like grinder that was like gold. And he would put beans in it. And when we were out camping or whatever, he would grind up the beans. And then he would like put the beans in this filter and like push it through a thing and like curate. It took like, it was a long process. You had to heat up the water, and I think there was value in that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the fun thing about what we're trying to do is like, it's a little bit inspiring people to spend more time outside, because we think that it's important, right? Have a healthy, active, outdoor focused lifestyle. We're up here in Evergreen for a reason. We're not in the middle of a city. It would be weird to say that and then say, wow, but we live in the city, but we preach all these things, right?
Right.
Like, we live up here. Most of our team lives up here, and it's really, we like to get outside. And I think this is all part of that daily routine that you can improve as an individual. And maybe just think about, like, if that's the one thing you're going to do that morning that kicks off the day, I think you better do it right. And that for you, that might be making a pour over or an AeroPress or just using your normal drip coffee maker. It doesn't really matter. I think it's a matter of being aware of it, and kind of feeling you're going to start the day right.
It's interesting you mentioned routine, because when you think about your day, whatever it is all of us do, maybe it's taking a shower, or, hopefully it's taking a shower, but, and it's like, I do a lot of things the same, and coffee is a part of that routine every single day. And maybe we don't realize how much coffee is a part of our daily routine. You just do it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's okay. So I'll put it this way. When you go to that coffee machine and like you open the can and there's no coffee in there because you forgot to buy some, it's like apocalypse, right? That's how much a part of the routine it is. So that it's got to be pretty cool to be, I would love for people to listen to the podcast every day, but I know they don't. But that when you produce or sell a product, people are doing that every day.
Yeah.
That's got to be pretty cool.
It is. Yeah. I feel like it's inspiring to us too, right? Because I think we find this interesting and we care about this product, but I think a lot of people do, but it's just good to be maybe pausing a little bit and put a little bit of effort into it and make it part of your day. And I think like these are the small improvements that we all kind of should be living for. I think it's bringing it back to the simplicity we talked about in the beginning. Like if you're just aware of these things and you're like, oh, this is actually kind of special, and I'm grateful for the fact that I have like a really nice coffee this morning, whether that's our coffee or something else, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of good coffee out there. that's a cool goal, right?
Yeah.
But I think we just need to be aware of the fact that because of all our distractions and devices and technology, that it's harder and harder to get to that moment because you're doing 7 things at the same time.
Yep.
And that's tough.
And you got to force yourself. I know I have to force myself. I had to do it this morning. I like to read a couple books before I go down to the office and start working. It's like coffee and like phone over there. And like, if it's warm, I'll sit on the deck or whatever. And it's like, just take 20 minutes, man, to just have some coffee and read or meditate or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's super important because once you plug back in, it's all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think there's the good news is there's a lot of growing interest in all of these topics, right? Like morning routines. And I think this is just an essential part, and this happens to be our business, so we're focused on it. But I think it's about all of it, right? Disconnecting a little bit, kicking the day off in the right way. And if coffee can help you do that, it's amazing. And I think that's why we like camping, right? Because it's the same on the bikes. To bring it back to moto, it's like I like to travel on a motorcycle because of the simplicity. Like you can multitask. You're on the bike, and even if you have, you know, a fancy TFT or whatever on your bike, you still really can't do anything other than maybe changing the song you're listening to.
Right.
And I feel like that's exciting stuff because it brings it back to like, oh, I'm doing this thing that I need to be fully focused on, which is riding a motorcycle, especially off road. Like there's challenging conditions. You cannot do anything else. And I feel like that's a good fundamental difference with driving another vehicle, because you can always multitask. You can do other things. You shouldn't, of course, but you know, we all do.
Yeah.
So I think camping with the bike takes that up another level, because then I can only take my best gear. I can only take a little bit of comfort, and I hope coffee is part of that.
Yeah, you make a great point. And I think that's part of why we love motorcycling is when you're motorcycling, that's it. Like I'm sure there are motorcycles with cup holders, but there's no cup holder. There's no like movie going on or no like whatever. You might have some audio, but that's it. Like you're locked in, you're focused, whether it's a across the country trip or just a day trip or whatever, you have to be locked in, focused. And I think that's super special. I think the camping aspect, the moto camping aspect, especially out here, last year I went out in the San Juans and you just kind of pull off on a road and you're like, yeah, here's fine. Especially if you're by yourself, there's something really cool with that. Of course you can do it with folks, but it's just a very personal experience. There's a little bit of, I hope I don't get eaten by a bear, but
Yeah.
it's a very personal experience. I think it's very cool. And doing it on a motorcycle, with the explosion of adventure bikes, this coffee aspect of it, I mean, it just goes hand in hand, and it has allowed you to really not immerse yourself, but become tied in with the industry through a lot of major brands. I would imagine that those brands get a lot of solicitations for a lot of similar things, but you're coming at them with, look, everybody drinks coffee. Everybody drinks coffee pretty much every day.
Yeah.
How do we work together? Is that how did it get started? I mean, I feel like it snowballed pretty quickly, or because every time I go to an event and there's motor brands there, you're there. And you're like, oh, I support these guys, support these guys, support these guys. So it seems like it's pretty cool that you're tied in like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story because we're not marketing ourselves as a moto brand, right? Like we said in the beginning, bivouac, camping, shelter, adventuring, I guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't care if adventuring means to you go for a 1 mile walk with your dog, or you go on you ride your motorcycle to Alaska. Like that's cool. Like both of those things I think are pretty amazing if you can do it. So we want to support all of that. But moto specifically, because I do a lot of riding, you meet people on the road. In the past, I was a partner manager in the tech world. So I'm used to build relationships that are based on partnerships, long-term focus. And I think with everything, there's so much focus on branding these days that, like I always find it funny that there's a climber's coffee and a moto branded coffee and a mountain bike coffee. Everything exists already. But I feel like it comes down to the quality of the product and the people behind that company. And I think if brands see like, hey, these guys ride, they are also offering a very sustainable product that tastes really good. That's cool. Like we want to work with them, hopefully. And I feel like that's paying off over time. We put a lot of effort into it, building these relationships and nurturing those relationships. But even whether it's in moto or not in moto, like that's a big part of what we're doing. Like a lot of our customers, even if they're just volume customers, we're trying to see them a little bit as partners. Like what else can we do together? Like go to events together, marketing stuff together. And I think that's a different approach than just saying, we don't really care who buys it as long as they, keep buying it.
Right.
I feel like we want that connection with brands. And if I think that a company is doing a really good job by creating really good riding gear or luggage for motorcycles, like, that's cool. I want to work with them because I think I want to support them. And if they see value in what we do, then let's make it happen. And that seems to work out pretty well.
Yeah, you made a great point. And I'll state it kind of differently. Everything's already been done before, right? Back to the whole, like, you're opening a coffee shop. There's 10 of them around here.
Yeah.
But with the motorcycle community, we talked about it being small. We talked about it, small relative to, say, other industries. And I would have to imagine when they're like, oh, coffee, yeah, Bivouac, oh, Rene, yeah. Like, because it's you. You are the brand. You are attending the meetings. You are or attending the rallies or getting out there and interacting with people. And that's such a huge component of it. That's a huge component of what I do. It's like you have to be the face. You have to, versus, like, I don't know, where do I go with this? I'm a vice president for, I don't know, XYZ cola company. And you're like, oh yeah, man, I know that cola, but it's not me. It's this company I work for. Yeah. Versus, like, you are Bivouac Coffee, and like, I want to work with you. Same with the companies that we talk to and work for. Is like, oh, but the person's really cool, so I'd like to work with them because they kind of promote what I promote. Back to the whole industry of smaller, I think it's a good synergy. I can't believe I just used that word, but it's a good synergy, and like, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a huge part of it, and I think a lot of companies, I suspect, are more focused on, like, the profit side of it. Like, oh, we want them because they're a big name and they would give us a lot of recognition and a lot of money, right, if they buy our product or whatever. And of course, that's all part of it. But at the same time, I think if you do things with people that you like, and there's that connection, I think that's amazing. Like, let's just work together and do fun things too. And those rallies, for example, as you said, are fun to do because we get to give out our product or give out samples or sell our coffee or whatever it is to people that are excited to learn about this product, and they're also fellow riders in the moto industry, and that's been really fun to do for us too.
Yeah, you talked about profits and you talked about revenue, and maybe you didn't talk about revenue, but that whole corporate shareholder value thing. And I think one thing that's super important, that, and starting with your story that you mentioned, you were like, I wanted to do coffee first, and I think going back to how I started, it was never, how can I do a thing that's going to make me all this money? It was like, I want to do motorcycles. That's what I want to do. It's my passion. That's what I want to do. Yeah. You want to do coffee. And it's like, of course you need money, unless we can start paying our bills with the leaves on those trees out there. But it's like, when you start with that passion first, coffee, motorcycle, whatever, the rest comes. And it becomes evident when you interact with these other moto companies or other brands, and like, oh, this is a really passionate guy, or girl, for those out there with businesses. But it's like, that shines through. And that authenticity is, like, electrifying. And it's like, I'd like to work with that person.
Yeah, exactly. And think about coffee, right? If you think about the life cycle of buying a bag of coffee, right? You either go to the grocery store and you just buy whatever looks good, or maybe a brand and reasonable price, right? Usually not the best quality overall, and not the freshest, which is also a big part of this. So I think if you meet somebody and you meet a person, or a team for that matter, because it's not just me, but you meet the team behind it, and people are stoked about what they do. They're excited. They're out there. They're enjoying the same thing. Like, if we do an event and we work with a ski company in the winter, like, we like to send somebody that's into skiing.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be pretty excited to be there. They love the connection with that brand. They can relate to the customers that are there. And that's what we're trying to do with these moto events too. Like, we think this stuff is fun and it's interesting and it's very challenging. So there's a lot of things to learn, and I think it creates a very good environment. But I feel like that's why we do it.
Man, this is good. You talked about sending somebody that skis to a ski event. I was at another dealership today, and we were talking about doing some work together. And I was talking to the general manager, and he was like, there's general managers in the industry that don't ride motorcycles. And I was like, what? How is that even? Yeah. So I think there's something to it. As far as being an enthusiast in the industry that you're in, helps with the authenticity, helps understand what you're doing. I guess I could, buy this business and be like, okay, but then I'd just be looking at, like, all right, margins, but there's no, like, actual interest. I mean, it's private equity, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm talking about private equity, but sure. I think it's important to have that interest, especially in what we're doing, and it shines through.
Yeah. And I do think that's something that happens when a company grows, right? I think that is sometimes unavoidable. We all know people in the motorcycle industry, of other industries, that they're not as much into it as you maybe think they are, because you just assume they must ride and do all these adventures, and they might say, not really.
Right.
It isn't necessarily bad, but I do feel like, it's fun to build a connection direct with the customers. That's why we mainly do direct sales, because we have the connection with people, even if it's remote and we're shipping them the coffee, like that's totally fine. Like we still have a direct relationship, and I meet a lot of people at the shop or on the road that meet us and say, "Oh, I saw you somewhere," or "I saw you guys somewhere," and I mean that's cool. Like, we had a guy recently or last fall who was riding his motorcycle from Chicago, I think, to California, and he stopped here. And is it?
Oh, wow.
I said, well, what? That's weird. Like, why would you stop here? Like, we're not right next to the highway, we're a little further. He's like, no, because I met you guys and I thought it was such an amazing coffee and I really liked your product and the team and everything. So yeah, I had it on my list as like a stop. So I'm going to be here for a couple hours doing some work and enjoying the shop. It was amazing.
That had to be a really good feeling. I think, guys coming from Chicago to California, what was he on? Do you know?
Some kind of adventure bike, maybe GS.
Okay. So, and you talked about rallies and you talked about events. And so typical year, 2024, we're getting into the riding season. What does that look like for Bivouac Coffee? I mean, what's your schedule? Like what's like highlighted on your calendars? These are some of the major things we're doing with major manufacturers or whatever.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things happening. I mean, we try to be everywhere because it's fun for us to do, but we can't. So that's always the logistical game we have to play, because we are bringing equipment. We have to travel throughout the country and go to these places. But we've definitely been focusing on a couple of like the core partners, which are Revit. They're opening a new flagship store here in Denver very soon, so we're doing some collaborations with them there. We'll be at most of the Moskomoto Dusty Lizard campouts. We did that last year too. They're super fun. Highly recommended if you're into camping and adventure riding. There's routes for everything. There's music, there's food, and obviously there's coffee. So it's just a really fun time, and they always pick the most amazing places to do the camp out. So we're doing that, and then we also sponsored the recent BDR expedition, so the Northern California one. So we provided them coffee for the trip and everything like that, and that stuff is fun, and it's for the same reasons, right? It's not just because of the association with the BDR organization, which I think is an amazing organization, a really good nonprofit that deserves more support. But I think like the mission behind the BDR is really good. Bringing economic relief to small towns and places in the middle of nowhere, which I think is really, really good. But it's also, that's what we like to do. Like I like to ride BDRs. I want to do more of them. I only have done a few and I want to do more. So I feel like if we can be involved with that and attach our brand to it, I feel like it's a perfect connection. So yeah, there's definitely quite a few things in the calendar. There's a lot of rallies we haven't decided on because, like I said, we're also doing stuff in other industries. But I think the interesting thing is there's also quite a bit of crossover between the different outdoor kind of sports or activities. We are running we're having a trail running series here in Evergreen, like once every month. So it's kind of a group run, and then we have a bit of a topic to talk about how to improve your running. Nothing to do with moto. And last time we did it, we had like 4 motorcyclists show up that happened to also be runners. And I feel like that's what I like about the adventure community specifically, is that a lot of people are not just about that. They're also just curious about the outdoors, getting outside, staying fit. I think fitness is a big one. Eating healthy, all those things. And coffee's a part of that. And it's really fun to see those things come together, because I did not expect to see motorcyclists at a trail run, but then you think about it, why not, right?
Right.
Like, we're not only motorcyclists, right? We're people that do different things.
Yeah, I think, and that's a key point is if you're going to do the type of riding we do, BDRs, you're out here. I mean, people are free to do whatever they want, however they want. But I think I have noticed in my own personal life, the more I try to at least focus a little bit on fitness, that helps, especially long days back to back. I mean, and fitness could also mean diet. I mean, if you're living off of gas station hot dogs and crackers, I mean, it's not going to be the same. And so I think that's huge. I think if you're going out running, you're talking about fitness and motorcycling, and that's a big component of it.
100%. Yeah. And the more technical the riding gets, right, the more that the physical fitness is important. So, yeah, I think we're just a part of that. If you drink a good cup of coffee and it makes you feel good and that doesn't hurt your stomach, and it keeps you going for a longer time because you have a gentle kind of effect of the caffeine, then it isn't like junk food. And I feel like it makes your day better, which makes you probably a better rider because you feel sharper, and it's all connected. And I feel like it's fun to be part of that little puzzle to do it kind of perfectly. And I think that's also the interest that people have. And like, if I'm perfecting my luggage setup for my bike and my, it's all part of it, right? You should also think about your intake. And I think coffee, that's where it starts usually, on the days.
Have you ever used one of those? There's various ones. I have Garmin is free, but where you track your intake, your calories and the type of calories. And those are like shocking.
Yeah.
If you're honest with it and you look at it and you're like, I remember I was doing last year the motor marshal stuff for one of the bicycle events, and in the morning didn't have time, and I just went to McDonald's, had sausage biscuit, hash browns, and whatever, and I put that in the thing, and I was like, I guess I'm done eating for the day.
Yeah.
Calories gone, fat gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a small thing. So that is a huge part of it. I saw this other meme that it was like what people think is hard, and it was like a big weightlifter guy, and it was like, well, what's actually hard? And it was like meal prepping.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a diet is such a huge part of it. Not to get off track too much, but it is. And when you're out there on those long trips, man, it's hard. Or when you're out there camping and you're eating the whatever it is from REI out of a bag, like you just got to eat that, man. You can't.
Yeah, and I think it starts with a certain awareness that it's a very important component. And that's what I like about the more technical side of adventure riding. And I'm not a great off-road rider at all, but I want to be better. It's like those things are so important. Every time I see this, if I get tired or just don't feel sharp or I didn't eat right or whatever it is, like I'm not going to be really good. And then you think about the risk level of that type of riding or any riding for that matter. It shows the importance of it. And I feel like that it's just fun to connect all these pieces, and coffee is a part of that, but there's so many other things. And I mean, like, that's what we should all focus on, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot in this episode, and I think it's great. We've navigated all the waters of coffee and business and motorcycles. And I think that, we're here in your shop, and it's a great time to wrap up and kind of put a bow on it, talk about future plans, talk about what you want to do with the business. I know that you've got, a vision board or a model. Do I want to expand? Do I want to hire more people? Do I want to go global CEO, back all the way back to the beginning, right? But what does that look like? I mean, what does that look like for Bivouac Coffee?
It's such an interesting question, because I think a lot of people expect something like we want to open more stores, like open more locations, and these big ambitious plans. And I think that is really good. And I think we're maybe a little bit more realistic. A lot of our customers are people that come in for the first time to say, you should open a location, in central Denver, or you should, whatever. Because always people just complain about the coffee in their area, right? So they're like, this was a great experience. You should come to my area. That is not doable for us. It's hard enough to make one location perfect, as we talked about before. So I think for us, like, we really like to, increase traffic even more at the tasting room here in Evergreen. Big part is, like, I love to see more writers out here.
Yeah.
People are definitely starting to find us, but we're not in downtown Evergreen. We're a little bit closer to the interstate, but in a beautiful location. And the trails are right here. And then there's all these mountain passes that you can ride literally like 2 minutes from here, pavement and off-road. So a lot of riders go up there in the summer. I want to make sure that they stop here first or after, because I think it's a great place to take a break or meet up with your friends. And other than that, I think for us, it's just finding more customers that buy into what we do and enjoy our product. And that could be growing our online business, growing our partnerships and do more with partners. Shared marketing is really good, especially when it's in person. So the events we're doing, the ones we mentioned earlier, those things are all really fun to do. So as long as we have the capacity to be in all these places and hit the road, I'd love to do more of that and meet people and have them sample the product. I think that's how we like to sell our product. Just try it first. It's not all about the story. It's about the people for sure, but I think it's ultimately just about the product itself, which in this case is coffee beans, and you need to just try the coffee.
And that's a serious level of confidence. Like, I can imagine being a chef and you have this dish and you're like, I want everybody to try this. And that probably, hopefully, everybody's going to love it. So when you're like, I want you to try my coffee because you're going to love my coffee, right? Like there had to be that confidence just doesn't come from like buying something and giving it to somebody. You had to perfect and refine and go through all the process. I'm just guessing to make sure that when you give that to somebody, this is the best version of me in that cup. And I want you to try it because I know you're going to love it.
Yeah, and I think it comes with experience too, right? Because we've been doing this for more than 5 years now, and I think we've really focused always on quality. So like our master roaster, the things we do to keep quality control in check and making sure that it is the best product, and our roasting protocols are perfect for that specific coffee. It takes a lot of time and effort, and I think we're pretty confident that it's good. Like, we like it, and I think people like it, and I think the more we can share that with people, of course, that's the most fun thing to do if you sell any product, right? So I think being out there, and I think having the personal connection with people at rallies and other camp outs and things like that is really fun for us. Next to the association with the other brands we work with, I think it's just good to be out there. People want to try it, and that's what it's all about. It's not so much about the marketing piece. I think there's way too much focus on branding these days, and like we said earlier, there's moto coffees out there, mountain bike coffees, whatever they all are, and climbing coffees. I think it's fine. I have no problem with any of the competition. I think I would just ask people, try the product, support those small businesses, and see if you like it.
Yeah.
And pick the one you like most. The flavor of the product in this case, and also the people behind it, and that's the one you should probably support.
So that's your vision with the business. What is going on with the moto industry? Where do you see yourself this year, next few years? How do you see yourself tying in, since we love motorcycling? We're both familiar with several brands. How do you see yourself continuing to grow that, or maybe not? Maybe just kind of sticking with what you got.
No, I think we're always looking for new opportunities, but I think it is because we're so partner focused. We are more focused on expanding the partnerships, do more with them, because those partnerships have been established. We know they work. We know there's an alignment there. So I feel like that's the main goal. We definitely want to work with new companies, and we are working with a few new companies this year that are not motor related, but like larger companies in the adventure space. And that's been really fun. And I think that that's where we're going to focus on, and we'll see what the future is going to bring. But my goal is to be in more places, building out a new bike to take to events this year. We'll put some sponsor logos in that, or partner logos in there, and I think that's going to be really fun to just go right around with people and hopefully see, who wants to work with us.
What's the next BDR you're going to do?
I'm doing Wyoming in September.
Ooh.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I've done a lot of sections of BDRs, but not many full BDRs.
Okay.
Which is kind of frustrating. It's just that commitment to time to say, I will go do that, and here's the start and finish. I've done most of the sections of Colorado, but not all of them. And I want to really improve my off-road skills myself. I got a little bit of a lighter bike a couple months ago, so hopefully it allows me to, feel a little bit more confident on some of those slightly more technical trails.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be a big goal for myself.
I think that's one of my blind spots. I got to do some BDR action myself. So I'm excited. Obviously, I don't have the most, it's not the bike's fault, but I do have a GS Adventure, and it's a hog. So we'll see how it goes. As with everything, we're in your shop. It's been a great experience. So I will let you have the floor and the kind of the last word. How do you want to end it?
I'm just going to say that I hope to meet a lot of people here or on the road this year. I mean, that's the most fun thing for us, is just share what we all care about. And if you're into adventure motorcycling, let's go ride together. Come visit the place in Evergreen and start your trip from here, or use it as a good place to take a break. And hopefully you just enjoy a nice drink. And if you want to try our beans, online is the best place to go. Just get a couple bags and give it a try the way you want to make coffee. And I think it's going to come out pretty good. And yeah, we're just looking forward to meeting more people and finding more of our customers and meeting our customers on the road.
Nice. Online, where is that online?
So it's bivouac.coffee. So it's really easy to find. Same on Instagram and Facebook.
Nice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Global CEO Principal, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks, Phil.
Shake your head, man.
That's awesome. I was just blown away by your sound effects. I was like, whoa, what's going on?